Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Talk with AVC. We now have our NFL segment. And it was wow, this has to be one of the craziest weeks of football I've watched in a long time. So let's just skip the patter. Let's get right into it. First off, we're actually going to start in the reverse a little bit here. Monday Night Football. The Seahawks and the 49ers, easily game of the week, possibly game of the year. This was a very entertaining game to watch, and the undefeated Niners suffer their first loss. Now, I'm going to go a little bit in depth in this game, and because I believe a lot of people are taking some of the wrong things out of it. A lot of people are blaming the 49ers are blaming Jimmy Garoppolo for the loss because he looked a little flustered at times, especially on the last few drives. Didn't really look great. Look, he got them down the field for game tying and game winning field goals twice. Once the kicker made it, once the kicker kicked it into the abyss. I don't know where he was aiming with that. It had to be one of the most awful kicks I've ever seen. So if anybody you'd blame, I'd blame that. And this was a Niners team who was lacking its top two offensive weapons, at least at their receiver and tight end position, with George Kittle and Emmanuel Sanders both out. The offense still played really well. Deebo Samuel had a breakout game. The Niners still look really good. And I wouldn't be too worried about this if I was San Francisco. You have another game against Seattle. I think they'll be fine. Jimmy Garoppolo is still, to me, looking like a quality quarterback, and he's definitely good enough to win the Niners a Super Bowl, I think. What impressed me more this week was Seattle's defense finally showing up, specifically Jadeveon Clowney. He had a breakout game this week. It's not going to show in the stat sheet, but man, this man was pressuring Jimmy Garoppolo all night. And he was a beast in the run game, too. He was all over the place. He was beating Joe Staley off almost every block. And it really is going to help the Seahawks going forward, having that elite edge presence back. So the Seahawks take the win, and this is going to be the battle for the NFC West. It's going to be these two teams. All right, then we'll move to the biggest upset of the week, which was the Falcons and the Saints. Oh, I had so much joy watching this game. Wow, it was fun. So, for the record, just to put in this record, this is the first time a 1-7 team has beaten a 7-1 team this badly at the 7-1 team's home turf since 1984. So this is one of the biggest upsets since 1984. Think about that for a second. So what happened? Well, New Orleans could not do anything on offense, and Atlanta played their normal game on offense, kicked plenty of field goals, but they were able to move the ball and chew up a lot of clock. But the defense really showed up this week, which is the strangest thing to say if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan. There was a while where the Atlanta Falcons did not have a sack in like 300-something snaps. This week they had 6. So what happened? Well, my opinion, a couple different things. You always have to take division games with a grain of salt because division games is just a lot more game planning. It's easier to game plan against division teams because you see them all the time. Division games are always kind of wacky. Anybody who's had a rivalry, they know that. The bigger thing, I think, this week was the fact that Dan Quinn once again stepped away from defensive play calling and split it between Raheem Morris and another coach who handled first and second down while Raheem Morris handled third down and other defensive action. It was a strange form of play calling, but seemed to have worked. They got 6 sacks. And they played a lot more tighter coverage, which is the modern NFL is what you're going to need to do. You can't play soft zone against these teams in the modern NFL anymore. So I guess the bigger question is, should the Saints be worried? I think they should. I actually think they should. Here's why. The Saints' offense is becoming predictable. Drew Brees does not have the ability, nor does he have the receivers, to stretch the ball down the field the way he used to. The Saints are... Sorry. The Saints just don't have the receiving core to stretch the ball down the field. Most of their receivers are big body guys or washed up Ted Ginn. Most of them are going to be chain movers. They don't really have the ability to stretch deep balls down the field anymore, nor does Drew Brees have the arm strength. And when you don't have that, it makes your offense predictable. It allows defenses to play up more, and it can lead to what happened this previous week. I still think the Saints will be fine. They'll be in the playoffs. As for Atlanta, this would be the most Atlanta thing ever to go on a meaningless winning streak. Because here's the thing. If Atlanta wanted to make anything out of a winning season, they'd have to win every single one of their games, go 9-7 to hope to make the playoffs. Sorry. I don't know if that'll happen, especially since they have to play San Fran and the rest of the division a bunch of times, including and also Jacksonville. It's possible, but it's very unlikely. And if you finish around like 5-11, 8-8, and you cost yourself a top 5 pick and finish in like the 12-15 range, again, the most Atlanta thing ever, you're going to piss a lot of your fans off because like, well, now you're mediocre bad instead of just bad. We'd rather you just be bad so we can get better faster. It's a confusing concept, but that's the way you almost have to look at it. But we'll see. Who knows? Seen tables run before, and this team is solid enough. Maybe they can do it. The Packers bounce back against the Panthers with some nice goal line stands and win a tough game at home, back in the win column after an embarrassing loss to the Chargers. And with the Saints losing, possibly, and the Niners also losing, and the Seahawks, as they are, possibly staking their claim atop the NFC. You know, the main thing with the Packers has just been the involvement of a run game that they haven't had for like 6 years. I keep stating it every week. That's what's changed this Packers team. That's why they're so much better. They're finally not just relying on Aaron Rodgers. And I'll get to that with the Chiefs in a minute. So then we're going to the Panthers and their QB situation. Cam Newton is on IR. And a lot of people are calling for Kyle Allen's head, thinking if Cam Newton was here, he would have won that. Cam Newton was healthy. In my opinion, I think Cam Newton's on his last leg or he's close to done. Mobile physical quarterbacks, especially that play as aggressive as he does, have short shelf lives, especially when their athleticism starts to fade away and they're not the greatest passer. You want to know why I almost think Lamar Jackson's better than Cam Newton? Because Lamar Jackson is showing improvement as a passer. Cam Newton really never showed me the drastic improvement that I wanted to see with him as a passer. He just never did. So Carolina's now in the situation where you're winning games with a undrafted late round draft pick QB. You got a guy like Will Grier who you took in like the 3rd or 4th round on the bench. Maybe he could be your future guy. This is a quarterback heavy draft class. You got guys like Jalen Hurts who could fall late in the draft. I think it is time for them to move on from Cam Newton, especially with this contract about to expire. It looks like, from what I've heard, they're going to attempt to trade him in the offseason, possibly to a team like Chicago, which I think would make a lot of sense. But I think Super Cam might be done in Carolina. I think that's just it. What is the Cowboys' problem? So the Cowboys lost another close game this week. So what exactly is their problem? Is it Dak? Is it Jason Garrett? Is it the defense? What's the problem in Dallas? I think the easiest thing to say would be Jason Garrett. But he coached well this week. So that kind of goes out the window. He's not a great coach. He's a mediocre coach. And then you almost want to say Dak. But Dak, again, shows up. Here's where I really think the issue is. The Cowboys don't start well. They don't. They don't start well in the first half. Dak specifically does not start well in the first half. It almost seems like it takes Dak about 15 throws before he gets into a rhythm and he's on fire. Look, he's a solid quarterback. They do need the protection with him, but he's a solid quarterback. Do I think they could do it with a Kyle Allen type guy and win games? I do think they could do that. Could they win a Super Bowl? Maybe not. A lot of facets on the Cowboys need to start stepping up. They're kind of underperforming right now, I think is the best way to put it. And maybe a coaching change in the offseason, maybe that is what they need. Maybe that is something just to take them to the next level, get a better coach. Maybe if they fire, I'm going to get the coaching in a minute, but guys like Urban Meyer and Lincoln Riley have expressed interest in the job if it became available. So who knows? Maybe we'll see. The Chiefs. I'm just going to come out and say it. The Chiefs are not a Super Bowl contender. The Chiefs lost to the Titans this week. They're not a Super Bowl contender. I'm done talking about the Chiefs as a Super Bowl contender until they show me something. So here's what they're showing me right now. They're showing me a backyard football team with a really good quarterback, an amazing quarterback, a generational quarterback, some really fast receivers, an all-pro tight end, and nothing else. Look, they got a good offensive coach in Andy Reid. Here's a problem. They can't run the ball. They don't have a good running back. They don't have a good run game. They can't run the ball. So they're relying on Patrick Mahomes to do everything on offense. Not only that, you're relying on him to do everything in the game because your defense can't stop the run. Defense can't stop the pass. Defense can't get pass rush. Frank Clark is looking like one of the worst trades this past offseason. So the Chiefs are saying, Mahomes, all right, cool. Win us 12 games. This reminds me of some of the old Packers teams and some of the old Saints teams where they relied on Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers to do everything. How did it end up? They finished like 7-9, 9-7. They were wildcard teams. They got bounced in the first round. The Chiefs are not a Super Bowl contender until they can either show me some rushing attack on offense or something that resembles a defense. People thought the Chiefs' defense was bad last year. It's worse this year. It's going to be even worse once Mahomes signs his contract and they can't pay anybody. And they forfeited so many first-round draft picks. Are the Dolphins better than we thought? The Dolphins won their second game this week against the Colts. Are the Dolphins better than we thought? Well, the Dolphins are in the top 5 in penalties committed, meaning they've in the top 5 for least amount of penalties committed. Don't commit penalties. And they've won 2 games with a bunch of young, kind of nobody guys. And they don't get penalized. So what does that tell you? That tells you they got good coaching. I believe in Brian Flores. He's a good coach. I think the Dolphins are going to be in a solid situation. They might not be able to tank for Tua. They might be able to get maybe their franchise savior will be like Jake Fromm or somebody. Maybe they will still end up in the top 5, but they're falling a little lower and lower every day, every week when they win. 2 wins in a row on the road. That's good coaching. And, we'll get to the Steelers in a minute, but that pick also becoming lower. The Dolphins are just playing solid football these past 2 weeks. It's crazy. They don't turn the ball over. They haven't been turning the ball over, and they don't commit penalties. That's just good coaching. There's no other way to put it, and that's the reason. Don't trust the Colts. The Colts right now are the leading wildcard team. I don't trust them whatsoever. It's not just because of the loss to Miami. It's about playing down to so many teams. Every game is a close game with them. Their offense is so one-dimensional. Their defense decides when and where it wants to be good and then just implodes. Adam Vinatieri's not the kicker he once was. He can't clutch kick a game for you anymore. I don't believe in the Colts in the AFC. I think whoever they play, even if they win a wild card game, whoever they play in the second round is going to just obliterate them. That's what I think is going to happen. They're going to play New England. They're going to play Baltimore. They're going to get washed. That's what's going to happen. Bears are still done. Yeah, they won this week. They won a 7-point game against a backup quarterback because Matthew Stafford broke his back, and they still almost lost. They almost lost to Jeff Driscoll. Yeah, exactly. Nobody knows who that is. I'm done with the Bears off. They can't score. That's what it is. They just can't put up any points on offense. That's the whole thing, and I'm just done with them. Steelers in the playoffs. So the Steelers beat the Rams, which was definitely an upset. They beat them in a close game. And they have a really easy schedule left. They have the Browns twice. They have the Bengals, I think, at least once. They have another group of couple easy teams. I think they have the Cardinals once. Steelers don't have a hard schedule left. And again, good coaching, solid defense. And look, the Mika Fitzpatrick trade is working out really well for them. I think they won this trade because they're winning games. So this pick's going to be in at least the middle round, which is where Fitzpatrick was drafted anyway. So It's basically like you just drafted Mika Fitzpatrick, and there's not a defensive back in this draft class that's better than Mika Fitzpatrick. There just isn't. And, 5 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, a forced fumble in 7 games from a traded over safety. That's what you just love to see. He's playing outstanding for them. He's won them a couple games. He's just playing great. Mason Rudolph is doing just enough to win games. I do think they should have gotten Le'Veon Bell at the deadline, but hey, you didn't have to trade him. Look, they're winning games. Juju played well against Ramsey. What can you do? I mean, the Steelers are probably going to make the playoffs. And, they almost beat the Ravens this year. They're well coached. They're a decently coached team, and they have a solid defense. I have more faith in them than I do in the Colts. I guess the next item on my list here, the Rams are fool's gold. Just talking about the Rams. The genius bubble on Sean McVay has burst. He's compared to Kyle Shanahan a lot. And I think here's the easy way to separate that. Kyle Shanahan can beat you in a million ways. Sean McVay seems like he has a formula for beating you, and if the formula doesn't work, doesn't seem to be able to do anything else. The Rams can't block. PPF has them ranked 30th in pass blocking, 29th in run blocking. That means they can't block. The run game isn't there. Jared Goff isn't a quarterback who can make things happen with his legs. He can't run for his life. This is a very top-heavy roster. This looks like some roster that some 12-year-old kid would design when playing Madden. Just get all the skill players. Nobody wants linemen. Don't worry about linemen. Get all the star players. Get a bunch of good skill players. Try to go win games. It doesn't work after a while. You win some games against bad teams with horrible pass rushes. You're not going to win against these teams with solid D lines. You're just going to get obliterated, especially with that offensive line. And that's why the Rams are fool's gold, and they're going to miss the playoffs this year. The Jets and Giants are both entertaining messes. That game was just a fun mess to watch. Big shootout, couple weird turnovers, that weird strip sack for a touchdown by Jamal Adams. It was a very interesting game, but the Jets managed to pull it out. I think the issue with the Giants was the fact that Saquon Barkley got 1 rushing yard. Yeah, it's a problem. And the defense. The defense has always been an issue for both these teams. The Jets defense just played well enough against the run to win the game. Sam Darnold played great. I mean, I'm not going to hype up Sam Darnold much because it was, the Giants defense, but he played a very solid game. Time to respect the Raiders. Look, I said it last week. I'll keep saying it as long as they keep winning. Chucky had a plan and it worked. Gruden had a plan and it's working right now. Derek Carr is playing the bet. He looks like the guy who was an MVP candidate back in 2017. Looked like the face of the Raiders franchise. Looked like he was going to be able to move him to Vegas. Who's that guy right now? One of the picks they traded for Khalil Mack. They got in the Khalil Mack trade. Josh Jacobs. He's probably going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. You're getting great production from your tight ends. Bunch of late round draft picks. You stack the O-line. Trent Brown, who a lot of people thought were going to be a liability because he came from the Patriots, is playing solid. You got a solid O-line. The defense, of course, needs some work, but everybody they drafted under Chucky looks good. They're playing solid football, and they're close to the wild card right now. I think they're better. They're better than the Colts. They beat the Colts. I think they're a decent wild card team. They won a bunch of games. They didn't play. They played 1 home game, and then they didn't have a home week 1. Then they didn't have a home game until week 6. 6 weeks. Not week 6. 6 weeks. They didn't have a home game. And they're above 500. That's insane. That's called good coaching. That's called winning on the road. And then we'll get into our last 2 topics here, which is who is the current MVP? It's Russell Wilson. Even though, had the Niners won that game, I might have said a little bit differently in here. And the only reason why is in overtime, Russell Wilson, your MVP, trying to make the big play, he threw that interception. That was rough. But the defense gave him another chance. And he marched down the field and he got them the win. So, and he made the big play when it counted with his legs. So that's an MVP candidate right there. That he won you that game. The Seahawks are going nowhere without Russell Wilson. He is the most valuable player to a team. The other candidates in Christian McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson. McCaffrey's cooled down a little bit. He's still ridiculous, but running backs, it's hard to win MVP unless your team's also winning a ton of games. And his team's kind of Some people are saying Tom Brady. No, it's the defense that's playing really out of his mind. And some people have said Lamar Jackson. Look, there's just too many pieces on that Ravens team to give Lamar Jackson the MVP. Look, he's flashy, but if you compare him to Russell Wilson. He is winning the games for his team. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens have a good defense. They got Mark Ingram. They got guys like that who are playing really well. It's not entirely just him. We'll get into our last thing here, which is coaching changes the foot and what are the top jobs in the NFL. If you look at teams where these are the 6 teams who I have spotted for most likely coaching changes. Dallas, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Cleveland, the Jets, and the Giants. The most likely destination for coaching candidates and swaps. Now, these are some teams who are very different. Some are in the midst of rebuilds. Some of them are in kind of mediocrity. And some of them are just the right guy away from becoming really good. So I've ranked these top 6, and I'm going to say why for each one. Dallas is the top job. Look, out of these 6 teams, they have the most talented roster. They've got that great defense. They got Zeke. They're the Cowboys. They're America's team. People want your national attention with the Cowboys. That's where guys like Urban Meyer and Lincoln Riley, that's where guys like that are going to want to go if that coaching job becomes available. They're going to look to the Cowboys as the job. You got Dak, Amari Cooper, Zeke. I don't know how long you'll have 2 of those guys, but then you got that star-studded defense, DeMarcus Lawrence. You're playing in Dallas, of the biggest football town. You can't compete with that job. That's the job that any coach would want. Number 2 is Atlanta. This is not just a biased thing because I'm a Falcon fan. This is just stating that out of the rest of these teams, they have the most talented roster. You got that really talented offense who just rebuilt its O-line. You've got some star players on. You got some star players on defense. They just need the depth and they need the right guy at the helm, and they'll be back in the playoff hunt. You got Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, guys like that. As long as you'll have that combination and some real players on defense, you'll be a playoff contender for quite a while. The number 3 job I have is Jacksonville. I might have had this a little higher. I might have had this higher had they still had Jalen Ramsey. They don't. They're still a talented team. They're winning games with Gardner Minshew. Nick Foles is about to come back this upcoming week. We'll see how that goes. But this is a kind of a laid-back organization. They're a patient organization. And they have an identity. They have solid players on both sides of the ball. There's another team where I would definitely consider it if I was a head coach candidate. On number 4, it's a tie between the Jets and the Giants. I think they're very similar teams. You got young quarterbacks with really good running backs, some mediocre weapons on the outside, and not much on defense. Some guys with some young potential, but not much on defense. Part of it's New York. There's a lot of pressure playing on New York's teams, but I think definitely Adam Gase is going to go. The reason I have it as a / combination is also because I'm not entirely sure if Pat Shurmur is going to go, but I wouldn't be shocked. And, it's New York. You always have coaching candidates considering New York because it's New York, let's be honest. And number 5, I have the Titans. The Titans are just the equivalent of mediocrity and inconsistency. They beat the Chiefs and then watch next week they'll lose to Jacksonville or something. Lose to a bottom 5 team. That's just the Titans. They're about to move off of Marcus Mariota. Ryan Tannehill has won them more games this year. They have, again, mediocre offensive weapons. They got an O-line that's underperforming and a defense that's honestly underperforming. I don't think Mike Vrabel was the right guy for the job here. I think they need a better coach. And this, I think, if you're going to get rid of Mariota, I think this is the season to get a new coach as well. Completely change it over again. And get a real coach. Don't get one of these low-level coordinators, guys who've never had the job before, who you just kind of throw in there. And then ranked last, I have Cleveland. Now, you might be a little surprised to hear that, given the talent that they have. Here's my reasoning. This is a toxic locker room. It is. Look, you got Odell, you got Trevor, you got guys who want the ball, you got an attitude like Baker, you got guys like that. This is a hard locker room to control. And unless you really get the right guy, you need a veteran coach. Unless you really get the right guy here, team's not going to work. I used the analogy earlier. This looks like some kid made a team on Madden. All skill players, all superstars, no depth, no O-line or anything like that. This is a strange team. And also just the impatience with this organization. I don't know if I wouldn't want to coach here if I was a head coach. I really wouldn't. Now, I know this was the last topic, but I feel like that we almost might need to talk about the Bills. Should we sell their stock in them? Are they even a legit playoff contender anymore? Are they a legit Super Bowl contender? Well, we're going to find out next week on the Talk with AVC. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this NFL segment of the Talk with AVC. I very much appreciate doing this for you. And if you haven't seen the other two segments, which is the MLB and college football segments, please go check them out. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you all next week.